Welcome to this three-part video, Perspectives on Change in Organizations. The three parts explain the foundational knowledge needed for you to develop a successful plan for change in any type of organization. This video in the series is Part 2, Planning Your Change. Let's look at the three parts of this overall series. The Part 1 video is about foundations of change. It explains the types of change that can occur, barriers to watch out for, and surprises that can happen. It also explains the 5 phases of any successful change process in organizations, including the goals for each phase and the priorities of leadership needed for each. The Part 2 video is about planning your change. It adds another level of useful information to Part 1, including some common models for planning and guiding change. It explains the most important roles to always consider in your plans. And it lists the most common types of activities for accomplishing that change. It ends by sharing some very important guiding principles that can be very useful during the sometimes challenging projects for change. The Part 3 video is about focusing your change. It explains where the project, the consultant, and client should each focus in a successful project. And it also suggests the components that should be in any change management plan. Then you're ready to develop your plan. The links to each of these three parts is available from your account in CDI's Learning Management System. We hope that you've seen Part 1 of this series. Now, let's look at the topics for this Part 2 video, Planning Your Change. The Part 1 video explained the most important phases to always have in any successful change project. Now, we will add another level of useful information by explaining how you can organize the phases into an orderly model to guide your activities during change. There are some very important roles or functions that must be included in any change effort. You must know about them and plan for each of them in your plans for change. In a corporation, one of the most important yet often ignored roles is that of the board of directors. It's the board's job to make sure that the corporation, whether it's a for-profit or non-profit, remains viable for the long term. So board members should know about and perhaps be involved in any major change effort. Then we'll look at many of the common types of activities or services that can be used to actually accomplish the change. We'll also talk about how these types of activities are typically selected. Organizations all have certain things in common, including powerful principles for guiding change in them. We'll end this Part 2 video by reviewing some major principles for you to consider in your change management plans.
I'm Priscilla Watson, and I'm presenting the CDI course, Perspectives on Change in Organizations. Numerous models for change have been developed. There are carefully designed and comprehensive approaches to diagnosing organizations and suggesting what can be done to address the results. It's useful to look at a list of models that you might consider. The list itself might open your mind to other options. First, we'll look at Kurt Lewin's model, unfreeze, move, and refreeze. Structures can be unfrozen or loosened up in a variety of ways. By enlightening members of the organization about the gap between where they are now and where they could be. The change is moved along primarily by cultivating new knowledge, skills, and perspectives among members. The system is refrozen by implementing new structures such as new plans, policies, and procedures, which freeze the current state of change in place. Lewin's action research process is based on an overall cycle of researching a situation to establish actions to take, taking those actions, and then learning from the actions. The process has been modified many times and often includes certain steps, such as clarifying the problem in the system, involving a specialist, diagnosing the situation, providing feedback, incorporating the feedback, establishing action plans, taking actions, and assessing the effects on the problem. Business process reengineering aims to increase organizational performance by radically redesigning the organization's structures and processes. The process starts from the ground up. It involves very detailed depiction and analysis of every process in the organization, and then implements adjustments to more effectively align the processes. Marvin Weisbord's Future Search Conference engages all key stakeholders in a multi-day working session designed to better align the organization with its external environment. Participants examine the past, present, and future of the organization from their perspective, the perspective of the organization and its industry. They discover shared values and assumptions to clarify a preferred future or vision. Short-term and long-term action plans are established. Emphasis is on building to the desired future rather than on solving the problems. The McKinsey 7S model depicts 7 dimensions of organizations that must be considered when accomplishing organizational change. To understand the model, imagine 6 circles arranged in a circle with 1 circle in the middle. The middle circle is labeled Shared Values. The 6 outer circles include strategy, structure, systems, skills, staff, and style. The point of the model is that an effective organization has to accomplish a fit between all 7 S's, and to realize that a change in any one of the 7 dimensions will affect and change in all of the others. In any planned change effort with your clients, you will want to fill the following roles. They can be filled by different individuals or groups at different times during the change process. Sometimes individuals or groups can fill more than one role. The change initiator is the person who first suggests the strong need for the change. She might have convinced others that there's a significant problem or an exciting opportunity facing the organization. Often the person who initiates the change is not the person who becomes the primary change agent. The change agent is the person responsible for guiding the overall change effort. This role can be filled by different people at different times. An internal consultant might be the first change agent. After the project begins implementation, that role might be filled by a team of employees. If the change effort stalls out, the change agent might be a top leader in the organization who intercedes to ensure continued process in the effort. The champion for change is a person or group who continues to build and sustain strong enthusiasm during the change. They remind everyone of why the change is occurring in the first place and the many benefits that have come and will come from that change. The champion role might be filled by the change agent or later on by a leader in the organization. The sponsor of change is the one key internal person or department that is officially responsible for coordinating the change project. In large organizations, that sponsor might be someone in human resources, strategic planning, or information technology. In smaller organizations, the sponsor might be a team of senior leaders. They work to ensure that the change effort stays on schedule and is sustained with ongoing resources and training. In an earlier course, we learned about the big picture in organizations and systems, and that leadership is the engine that drives the activities in the system. Leadership is most influential when it comes from people in management positions, but everyone in an organization can lead, if only in leading themselves for change. Significant change in an organization will not be successful unless it has the strong, visible, and ongoing support of leadership during the entire change effort. All employees in a corporation, including the CEO, ultimately work for the board of directors. In projects for significant change in small to medium-sized corporations, the board can be the leverage point, that is, the point where the least effort can make the biggest difference. Board members have full authority for allocating all resources for the organization, such as people, time, and money. Allocation shows strong political support for the change, which can sustain strong, ongoing motivation and momentum for the change. Board members often have a wide variety of knowledge about governing the organization, such as planning, leadership, management, supervision, and problem solving. They usually have strong knowledge of the organization's industry and marketplace. That knowledge can be very useful during a project for significant change in the organization. Board members are usually not involved in the day-to-day activities of a project, so they have a very objective view of the activities inside the organization. That perspective can be very useful when monitoring and evaluating the results of a project for change. One of the primary jobs of the board is to ensure accountability, that the corporation has clear purpose and priorities and is always working toward them. During the discovery and the action planning phases of the collaborative consulting cycle, you and your clients decide which activities will be used to solve the problem or achieve the goal. You have a wide variety of activities to choose from. We'll highlight just a few of the most common for you now. The list might be useful for you and your client to consider. Assessments are a very powerful way to make a difference in your client's organization, because it actively involves people in thinking hard about what's going on in the organization and what might be done to make things even better. In some of the earlier CDI courses, we talked about how coaching conversations can be extremely powerful to bring out wisdom from people and to cultivate their strong participation in activities for change. We also talked about facilitation as a powerful approach to get those same results, but with groups. Financial analysis is also very useful for detecting problems in an organization. Problems with finances are often symptoms of other more strategic activities. Leadership development is very common now, because without effective leadership in an organization, little or no change can occur. Mentoring is also very popular today because it allows more experienced people to share their strong knowledge and expertise with others in the organization. Product and program development are a prized set of services from consultants. If products and programs are not successful, then it probably won't matter what else is successful in the organization. Risk management is increasingly popular as social media has become so universal, and the public is much less patient with unethical dealings. Strategic planning can be transformational when the right model of planning is implemented in the right way. Team building is a common way to strengthen performance in the workplace because most work gets done in teams. You and your client might use a variety of ways to select which types of capacity building activities to use. In their book, Building the Capacity of Capacity Builders, Paul Connolly and Peter York suggest that the type of activities that you choose depends on certain factors. First, the client should have the resources to use the activities. Resources include time, skills, expertise, money, facilities, and equipment. Your client should also have the organizational readiness to use those resources. Readiness includes having the time to participate, but also the understanding and commitment to use the activities. In the earlier CDI course about the big picture in organizations, we talked about life cycles in organizations and systems. The current life stage should affect the choice of capacity building activities to use now. For example, new organizations need activities to create new systems, while more mature organizations need activities to be more efficient. Your choice of activities also depends very much on your own expertise as a consultant to guide your client through those activities. For example, your skills in advising, coaching, facilitating, and training. Experts in systems have identified numerous principles about how systems work and how to change them. These principles are the wisdom that guide you and your client to plan and implement changes in any system. One of the best descriptions of systems principles is in Peter Senge's book, The Fifth Discipline, and Draper Kaufman's book, Systems 1, An Introduction to Systems Thinking. The following principles are adapted from those publications. These principles also are listed in the handout for this course. The first principle is that the behavior of a system, such as an organization or a team, depends on its entire structure. For example, if you examine business planning without examining the closely related strategic planning, then the organization might be no better off than they were before. Some people might claim that this principle is not followed when consultants focus only on the people side or only on the business side of the system, and not on both sides. There is a circular relationship between the overall system and its parts. Ever notice how some organizations and people experience a recurring pattern of the same problems? For example, some organizations are always in financial crisis. Wise and experienced leaders soon focus on fixing the pattern rather than just the events that occur in them. For example, they cut back on expectations or extend deadlines, rather than a never-ending process of raising more money. Structures determine behaviors, which determine events. In the language of systems, a structure is a recurring pattern in a system. A classic example is the alcoholic whose recurring drinking behaviors continue to ruin his life. People who are uninformed about alcoholism tend to preach at him to stop those behaviors. They don't focus at all on the aspects of the recurring patterns in his life, that is, on his continuing need to drink, his recurring drinking, and the increasing damage to his life, all of which reinforces his continuing need to drink, until there is an effective intervention in the overall pattern. A very useful principle is that there is no blame. When issues recur in an organization, it's common that people become so frustrated that they begin blaming each other. Wise leaders understand that recurring pattern and focus on fixing it rather than blaming the people involved. Actually, when those systems are fixed, the most irritating and problematic people often become the best. Problems in a system are usually best solved one level above the problem. We explored that principle in the earlier course on the big picture in organizations. For example, problems with cash flow might be caused by problems with sales. Problems with sales might be caused by problems in marketing. Problems with marketing might be caused by problems with business planning, and so on. Let's look at some more principles for changing systems. Recurring problems in a system are usually caused by the interrelationships between the parts of the system rather than by a particular part. If strategic planning did not integrate the goals that were relevant to all departments in an organization, then problems can occur within each of the departments. For example, sales might suffer for one product that is actually conflicting with another. Long-lasting change comes from changes to structures in the system. For example, new supervisors often try to change the performance of their employees merely by preaching at them. Wise supervisors have learned that to get long-lasting performance from employees, the employees need clear roles, goals, and expectations from their supervisors. Today's problems are often yesterday's solutions. The quick fixes of today often make things far worse tomorrow. For example, if organizations struggle with financial problems, then it won't do much good to continue to borrow money from investors. Instead, the organization should reduce goals, extend deadlines, or reduce expenses. The harder you push at changing a system, the harder the system will push back. For example, it does little good to tell burned-out employees to just suck it up and do a better job. Their performance will just get worse because they'll feel more frustration, anger, and despair. Rather than pushing at them with dire warnings, first come from them. That is, listen to them about their frustrations and needs. That approach is much more likely to recognize the causes of the burnout and what can be done about it. The last principle that we'll mention is that our favorite way out usually just leads right back in. When we have recurring problems, we often resort to doing what we were doing already. We just do it even harder. For example, visionary leaders of new organizations often operate in a highly reactive mode, and they loathe what they call bureaucracy. However, as the organization becomes more successful, it needs internal systems to provide the efficiencies to support that growth. When those systems aren't developed, workers are expected to work even harder. Unwise leaders begin to blame the workers for not being more loyal. Wise leaders work smarter. They shore up the internal systems instead.
Now is a good time to pause and reflect on what you've heard. In your learning journal, answer the following questions. Which model for change do you most prefer and why? And which are your top 3 principles for change and why? You can pause the video and give this some thought. Perhaps discuss these questions with peers and then write your answers in your journal. We've come to the end of this video. We hope that you'll see all 3 parts. The links to each of them are available from your account in CDI's Learning Management System. If you ever have any questions or want to share feedback, simply send us an email to info@consultantsdevelopmentinstitute.org. And again, thank you for your time during this video.